Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, Canada Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel, a special edition. This is a special edition of Missing 411 Factual News, and it's a review of the Skinwalker series on the History Channel. And right now, it is May 18th, and we're reviewing the show that aired May 17th. So hold on to your hats. This is going to be a biggie. So, I've had some people write some comments that the physicist on the show, Travis, isn't credible. That's laughable. Because if you saw my last factual news segment about Skinwalker Ranch, I told you that Travis just got hired by a big firm. He may not be back for another season of Skinwalker. But he and another individual were hired by Radiance Technologies. Big news. And if you think that Travis is going to compromise his ethics for a TV show, you're nuts. Not going to happen. So, there is solid science behind this Skinwalker series. And I applaud the producers for what they've done in putting it together and getting a good team out there. So let's review the series for yesterday. First of all, Jonathan Dover, the Navajo Ranger, pretty famous guy, and I mean that seriously. The Navajo Rangers are in charge of the property on the Navajo reservation. And they've had all kinds of super strange things happen there. And I followed them for a number of years, and Jonathan is one of those super credible individuals. When they went to McConkey Ranch, and they talked about the petroglyphs and the spirals on those, we saw those spirals in Mesa Verde National Park in an area where Dale Staling disappeared. So put that in your hat. And they said that those could be a sign of portals. Now also, at Mesa Verde, I have told you before that a reporter came to the park, didn't know someone was missing, tried to get the interview with the park superintendent, was told he was busy and to go take a hike. She took a hike out into an area where Dale disappeared and heard somebody calling for help. She came back rapidly, told the superintendent and the chief ranger. They looked at each other and says, "Oh my gosh, somebody else reported the same thing in the area you just reported this individual missing." And we went out and searched half the day and didn't find anything. We're going back out again. They didn't find anything again. So how could somebody be calling for help and canines and an experienced search and rescue team from the Park Service couldn't find him? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? There are certain people within the Native American community that you can trust. First of all, I trust most of them, especially the elders. And their stories about what's happened in their past as a nation are important. And when Jonathan started to talk about this, my ears perked up. As he stated, dimensions and portals tie everything together. And I think that's important to understand. Dimensions and portals tie everything together. And different frequencies can open portals and dimensional gates. Remember when that frequency started to flash on the screen in the control office where members of the Skinwalker Ranch team were sitting? It was 1623.450, and then later it was 1.6 gigahertz spike. Well, that 1.6 gigahertz has physiological side effects associated with it and unidentified flying objects associated with it. So Jonathan said that the Navajo creator story came through a portal, and we talked about this and vanished. You have to be a complete fool to hear this over and over again from different Native American tribes and not think there's something to this. And people who are dismissing this are idiots. Now, the part where the team decided to get a Cessna to fly over the triangle zone, I think is an interesting attempt to understand, but I think it's the wrong one. Why would you put an aircraft that has to move over the triangle? Why wouldn't you put a big balloon up right over the middle of the triangle and keep it stabilized with big ropes right over the triangle to get your data? I didn't quite get why they wouldn't do that. But they did say that 2,500 to 5,000 feet above the ranch, weird things were happening. Travis asked the pilot to fly a grid pattern over the top of this triangle zone. And in the back, they had GPS sensors that were trying to get data over this zone. Now, ADSB, they talked about, this is an air traffic monitoring device and weather device that tracks all of the airplanes within 100 miles. So Eric's in the plane collecting data. At 7,500 to 8,000 feet, he starts hearing a super loud noise come over his radio. Highly unusual. And then they hit a 1.6 gigahertz RF spike. And that's exactly when they saw a shadow appear below the plane down near the ground. Then there's a 1.623.450 frequency blast in the control room. Now, men's voices are heard in the room like an echo chamber. They leave the room and the echo device is still in the room. And they have a concern that maybe there's some type of listening devices in that room. So it would take somebody about 10 minutes to clear that room if there was any listening devices there. Now, I don't think there is, but to them, they've got to eliminate all possibilities, and I get it. The part where they're hearing the echoes in the room, even when they're outside the room, if you put a canopy over an area, say it was a soundproof canopy, super solid, it would sound as though it was an echo device in that room. So could there have been a canopy over the room that eliminated them from seeing the Cessna flying overhead? That's a question. Now, the two other members of the ranch took Jonathan Dover over to the rocks on the other side of the mesa from the ranch. And he was looking through a hole in a rock about the size of a tennis ball. And he mentioned that he's looking at the horizon out through the hole. But also through that hole, I don't know if you caught it, but there was a giant rock mound that also that hole looked at. They never mentioned it. I'm not sure if they never mentioned it because it's on somebody else's property and they couldn't go onto it, or what the reason was, but that intrigued me. And Jonathan talked about always entering a sacred area in a clockwise position. The Native Americans do that. When Native American dancers enter an area to dance, they always enter in a clockwise position as a point of reverence. Now Jonathan said, he believed this was a holy place. The rock circles, the big rocks. And he said it kept evil at the ranch and away from this area, which was tribal land at the time. Now let's look back in time and think about what's happened at this ranch that could get the moniker of evil. Well, first of all, there's been animals killed. There's been humans injured. Remember, there's a member of the ranch that had to go to the hospital because his brain started to enlarge. Travis has had burn marks on his arms from what appeared to be radiation burns. Other members of the ranch have chronicled that they have had hitchhikers, and that means an entity follow them home and essentially harass their roommates or their family. Other people have had massive headaches. So there is something evil going on that has injured people. There's no doubt about this. The people at the ranch are under some risk. I don't care what you say. It is true. And for sure, animals and livestock are at risk there. And that's been proven. When George Knapp wrote his first book with Colm Kelleher about the hunt for Skinwalker, they talked about many animals that were found there mutilated, injured, harassed, etc. So, the Cessna lands at an airport. The people in the control room never see the Cessna on their instruments flying over the ranch. In the plane, they brought up 4 GPS monitoring devices. I'm sorry, 5. 4 of the 5 failed or showed blurry numbers that they couldn't read. The 5th one worked perfectly. There was another GPS device on the plane itself, so they downloaded that as well. Here's a part that is really important. The GPS device on the plane showed that the plane at certain points was flying 62.5 miles below the surface of the Earth. How could that be? How could GPS fail like that? Well, what's 62.5 miles below Earth? That's a good question. So I printed this out for you because I wanted to know. So here you have the crust of Earth, and that's 5 to 25 miles. And then you have the mantle, which is 1,500 miles. I think that's what it says. And then you have the outer core. This is 1,000 miles. The outer core that's 1,400 miles thick. And then you have the inner core that's 800 miles thick. So this is thickness of the different layers. So 5 to 25 miles. Then you have 1,000 miles. So that 62.5 is going to fall inside the mantle, this area right here. Now, why would that be important? First of all, Travis said 62.5 miles is the distance from Earth to what we consider space. It's actually 62 miles. But the 62.5 is fascinating. Why would something come up with that? So, here's a diagram for you. It says, where does space begin? Space begins at the Kármán line, which is roughly 100 kilometers or 62 miles above the Earth's surface. So we have the troposphere, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the Kármán line, and the thermosphere. Those are the different levels of space. So that's your little lesson for today on space and on the Earth's crust. Now, let's get back to the Kármán line. Is an imaginary line that scientists use to define the border between outer space and the Earth's atmosphere. It's from the World Atlas. The Kármán line is at an altitude of approximately 62 miles. It is considered to be the starting point of outer space in various space treaties, and also for aerospace record keeping. The line got its name from Theodor Kármán, a Hungarian-American scientist. The Kármán line is recognized by the Federal Aeronautique and Internationale organization. It's a global record-keeping and standard-setting body for astronautics and aeronautics. Where is the Kármán line? The atmosphere does not end abruptly at 62 miles above sea level, but it does become thinner with altitude. Theoretically, if one were to consider the numerous layers of the Earth's atmosphere, then the edge of space would be extended to 6,200 miles above the exosphere. However, the Kármán line is determined by calculating at what elevation the Earth's atmosphere becomes too weak to support flight. There's your explanation. But why would the devices come out 62 miles below Earth, 62.5 miles? That's the million-dollar question. Why below Earth? So, 4 out of 5 trackers don't work. The one on the plane shows that they're flying below Earth. Now, when you think of hell, what do you think of? Where's hell? BibleKnowledge.com. One question that we keep getting coming through our website is on hell, and especially where it may be located. Many people have asked us if the Bible gives us any indication of where hell may actually be at. After reviewing all the verses on hell, I believe the Bible gives us major clues as to where hell may be located. For those of you who are interested in this technical question, I thought I'd draw this up for all of you to see. As you look at these specific verses, notice that every time heaven is mentioned in the Bible, it is being referred to as up in our earth. And every time hell is being mentioned, it's being referred to as being down on our earth. Being down from our earth tells me that hell is literally underneath our earth and possibly located right in the center of our earth. Now, for you out there that think I'm trying to be preachy on the Bible, hold on to your hats. Don't leave, because I'm not. I'm getting to a point here. Here are the verses that are giving us major clues that hell may literally be located right underneath our earth and possibly right at or close to the center of it. Words from the Bible: cast them down to hell, go down alive into hell, descending to the chambers of death, shall descend into it, descend into the pit. Those who go down to the pit, they go down alive into the pit, going down to the pit, shall go into the lowest parts of the earth. Those are all different statements that refer to hell. The very last verse from Psalm 63.9 is a major one, as it literally is telling us that those who are going into hell are literally going into, quote, the lowest parts of the earth, end of quote. Friends, be patient with me. I'm trying to go at this as analytically as possible. George Knapp was on the Joe Rogan show, and the show number is 1510, minute marker 1 minute 31 seconds, 1 hour 31 minutes, no seconds. At that mark, George Knapp stated on the Joe Rogan show that the Defense Intelligence Agency was studying Skinwalker Ranch, and they quit studying it because they felt it was demonic. Did you catch that? Our Defense Intelligence Agency stopped studying the ranch because they thought it was demonic. And they said, we might be invoking Satan. Wake up, folks. Remember Jonathan Dover's comment about evil at the ranch. There's evil there. There's no doubt in my mind now. Now, have you ever heard of the Institute of Consciousness Studies? hold on. What does the field of consciousness mean to you? What does that include? Is there a survival of human consciousness after death? I guess some would say that was our soul. But is it? Or is that something different? So Robert Bigelow originally put a team together to understand what was happening at the ranch. Then he later put a team together, a specialized team, about communication with the dead. My son, before he departed, took his life, wrote a report in a contest that Bigelow promoted about consciousness and death. Ben believed at one time that he had a near-death experience. Now, if you understand why Mr. Bigelow may have done this, if the Defense Intelligence Agency was at the ranch when Bigelow owned it, and apparently they were, per George Knapp, then Mr. Bigelow knew that they were coming to the conclusion that whatever was happening at the ranch was demonic in nature. And really, the first effort ever scientifically to study this was Mr. Bigelow. Now, what happened to Mr. Bigelow? When I first heard this, I thought it was one of the worst 3 single episodes that could ever happen to a human being. Let me tell you, I'm not telling you anything that's not fully public that he has talked about personally. In 1992, his son Rod committed suicide. In 2011, Rod's son, Rod Jr., committed suicide. And in 2020, Mr. Bigelow's wife of 55 years died of cancer. Do you understand why maybe he'd want to push the envelope to see if he could talk to them in some way, communicate with them? And I know many of you will say, oh, you know what, that's dangerous. You're really communicating with demonic beings, and you shouldn't, the God says you shouldn't be doing that. I understand that. I'm not Mr. Bigelow. If I lost 3 people in my life, and I had his money, I may push the envelope as well. I find no fault in him for trying that and trying to understand the consciousness side of this. So Mr. Bigelow owns the ranch. He pushes the envelope trying to understand what's happening there. Then he suddenly sells the ranch. And his life has taken some enormous hits. Leaving, losing a son, a grandson, a wife of 55 years. Folks, it doesn't get much worse than that. I lost a son. And I think that's horrendous. He lost 3. Many people have told me over the years to stay away from the ranch. Other people have tried to get me to go to the ranch. I was invited to the ranch by George Knapp, and then he canceled at the last minute. Maybe that was a blessing. I don't understand why certain people have so much tragedy in their life. I wish that I could sit down and talk to Mr. Bigelow and we could just compare life notes. In a lot of ways, we're very similar. I'd like to know how many people that have done research like I have done, like Mr. Bigelow has done, have suffered life tragedies like we have. Is it somehow related to our work? Are we somehow getting punished by an entity for putting our toe in this water? I don't know. I do think that the men at that ranch are taking great risks. Travis has said that he's had multiple burns and they've shown on his body. And radiation is a cumulative factor in the body. It accumulates over time. It's not good. A radiologist once told me, Dave, if anybody ever tells you that, this is just a small amount of radiation, it isn't going to hurt you, he goes, don't believe it. No amount of radiation is good for the human body. That's what his statement was. And I've always listened to it. So when I go in for a physical or something and they want to take an x-ray, 99 times out of 100, I'll say no x-ray, no. The only x-ray I've had in the last 10 years has been for my broken leg. I thought, man, I better get that x-rayed. But anyhow, that's my segment on Skinwalker Ranch this week. If you think about the control that this entity has over the ranch, they control the land. They control the entities that are on the land, the cows and the people. They have shown that they can exert strength and injury on cows and on humans and on other beings on the land. They've shown that they can control data and the accumulation of data. They've shown that they have some type of ability to either read your mind or anticipate with 100% accuracy what is going to happen in the future with their testing. Now, could something disastrous happen at the ranch? Suppose it could. And I suppose that is part of the danger in being there. Now, when Brandon Frugal flew his helicopter in, and something flew under that helicopter a couple of shows back, it wasn't seen, but at one point the helicopter, when it was thousands of feet in the air, showed it was only 40 feet in the air. How could that be? I'm going to leave you with one last thought. And this is an important one. People who have been abducted in the past and have reportedly had conversations with aliens have stated that the aliens can, at times, when they want, control time and space. And they can freeze time and space. If that is true, and I've heard it too many times for it not to be an ounce of credibility at this point, that while these experiments are going on, if they could freeze the area above the ranch, that triangle zone, in the way it was before the plane flew over, then the people on the ground would be viewing the area above the triangle as it was 30 minutes prior. And the data collected would be as though it was 30 minutes prior. And the plane flying through it would not record anything unusual because maybe they shut things down during that period of time. But freezing time and space, I'm guessing they're going to bring this up soon. But that does answer a few of the questions about what's going on. I think as this series goes on this year, we're going to see something happen that shook these guys up pretty bad. Again, Travis now has a full-time job for Radiance Technologies. I don't know if he is able to come back for the next series, if he wants to come back. But if he really wanted to, he could put it in his contract to come back. But look up Radiance Technologies, and I think them hiring Travis says a lot about what was found there and what they're actively looking forward to in the future with him and other brilliant intelligence officers and scientists. So I hope I kept your interest on this, and we're going to be talking a lot more of it in the future. I think the men on that ranch and the lady that lives on that ranch deserve our acknowledgement for being very brave souls, because we don't know what will happen to them in 10 years. Hopefully nothing. Paulides out.